So let's start quickly, talk about what has been happening, because again, the president, there are several clips that are now going around saying that he's close to 40 tours since he came into the office, and he defended that on Sunday. When you look at it and the much expenditure that this comes, not just on the president, but also on other state officers and public officers, what would you say is the justification if you're to look at what Kenya is gaining? Are we at a point that you're able to substantiate and say, this is the much we have achieved from those tours?
Thank you, Sam. I'm happy you've asked this as a first question, because President William Ruto, any president who is elected, any serious president immediately after taking office, has to cement the diplomatic relationship with different countries. The president is not traveling for fun. It's actually not enjoyable to visit all these countries. He's doing it because there is an urgent need to resource this country and speaking to investors and different countries and nations to make sure that we tap into some of the resources that are urgently needed in this country, particularly from those countries that have largely, predominantly supported Kenya. The president has been to the US, the president has been to Germany, the president has been to Belgium, recently he was in Russia. But allow me just quickly to enumerate some of the gains that we've achieved with these travels. And number one, when we first were elected to government, the president has traveled to, the first country was USA, that was the General Assembly. There were bilateral talks that happened there. In the UN General Assembly. Then he came and went to Ethiopia. Ethiopia, this was when he was launching, there was a launch of the subsidiary of Safaricom in Ethiopia. That is a huge, huge investment and an employment opportunity for Kenyans. There was in Egypt, and then in Egypt, that was a UN climate change bilateral talks. And you remember in Egypt is where we got, he signed the $5 billion investment by the UK Prime Minister, Mr. Rishi, if you do remember. The president again went to Congo. Let me even skip Congo and Eritrea and go straight to the US, where the president was hosted by the President Joe Biden, and he held talks. And here is where we had the Rockefeller Foundation discussion in collaboration of green energy in Kenya. That is a huge, huge achievement. Then he went to France. You know, in France, this is where he held talks with Macron, President Macron. And here it was infrastructure projects. Part of it was the discussion of the Mau Summit, Rironi, all the way to Nakuru, dual carriage. I will skip African countries, Senegal, Burundi, even though they were significant as well. And I go straight to Germany. In Germany, the president was a keynote speaker on the 9th Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue. And then he went to Belgium. This was a state visit, and they also held bilateral talks with the Prime Minister Alexander De Croo, where they discussed health, food, and security. And then I will go straight again to Netherlands. In Netherlands, he did the Global Center on Adaptation, and this was in Rotterdam, in strategic dialogue on African Summit. Israel, they held bilateral talks with Israel Prime Minister and signed various agreements in cooperation, agriculture, trade, education, and security. South Africa, this was third Pan-African Parliamentary Summit on climate and equity. So I'm just enumerating this so you tell me where you thought that the president should not have visited. And then, of course, he went to Comoros, came to China, the latest was Tanzania, from Tanzania again to the USA, and then, so that I just sum it up, China. In China, this was very interesting, because we had, critics had actually thought that the president had been leaning towards the West. But in China, he had a serious engagement. He signed an MOU with Chinese on telecommunication company Huawei to expedite Kenya's digital transformation. That was extremely important. There was discussion on infrastructure. If you saw Honorable Kipchumba Murkomen's tweet, he highlighted on areas discussed. First, one was a request of $1.5 billion for infrastructural development and even settling of certain loans, not certain loans, certain debts that are owed to contractors. That will be a game changer. There were issues of...
So a request, did it transition to an offer?
I don't know. That is now a discussion with Treasury. But this is what I'm just saying what I saw from Murkomen's tweet.
Right, I hear you, Honorable Koech, and I mean, this is good information, but the essence of what I'm asking is, we don't see this translating into either action or even being reflected in the budget of the country.
But honestly, Sam, these are things that have just been done in the last...
Those trips you're talking about have been over a year ago,
yes.
Some of them.
Every trip is very useful. Look at how many trips Ramaphosa made in his first 7 months of presidency.
No.
He did more than 42 trips.
Let's talk about the president of Kenya.
Yes.
So how do we see this translating into an impact that is being felt in the country?
I have enumerated what we've achieved as a country. I have even said, in terms of figures, how much the president has the bilateral, multilateral that the president has signed.
Like Egypt, you spoke about, is it 5 billion?
5 billion that was signed by the UK Prime Minister. Yes.
So where is that money?
It should be around.
What is
it should be coming. You don't sign and you get it the next day. These are their procedures.
When was that signing?
I don't remember exactly, but if you allow me, I can look on my phone. This happened in... So ordinarily, when these are signed, then of course there are procedures again that come with agreeing and dispersing the funds. This one, and most of it are donations and funding. Some of them are loans, some of them are funding directly without necessarily being a loan. The one for Egypt was done in 2022.
2022. I mean, that's what I'm asking. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I'm just asking, so where is it? How can we trace it?
No, but I just needed to enumerate, first of all, where we are and the successes that the president achieved in this travel. I just wanted, first of all, to allay the fear that the president could just be joyriding and enjoying the trips outside this country.
The beauty of it is that we haven't said that he's joyriding here.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Brian, tell me, what are your thoughts about